Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but not good night. Let's do together a first certificate reading exam, part 5, multiple choice, in order to learn the most important techniques. Time is of the essence. The best way to show you how to deal with it is by a real exam provided in Cambridge's official website. Let's begin. These are the steps we must follow, so let's begin with the first one. Get general information from the introduction and title. All the information we need to know what it is about is pointed out there. You are going to read an extract from a novel in which a young woman called Caitlin talks about her life on an island. Whenever it's an extract from a novel, there's no title. So now that we know what it is about, we do not read the texts. What do? We read the questions first. The questions include the information we have to search for and sometimes even tell us directly where it is. Question 31, we know it's in the first paragraph, and it's the main point about the island, what they're looking for. In 32 is when she's talking about her father, and 33 when there are feelings of discomfort. Do not read A, B, C, or D yet. If you want us to do it together from 34 to 36, click on play, and afterwards we can compare answers. Time to click. 34, the answer is in the fourth paragraph, and we have to search for her purpose, describes the island. In 35, it tells us it's in line 31, and it gives us the sentence. So afterwards, we go to 36, and the information we have to look for is learn about her reactions to the boy. After this step, we identify where to find the answers. How? We read again the first question in the first paragraph. What is Kathleen's main point about the island? When there is a general question to be found in a whole paragraph, the steps to follow are different. They are similar to part 7 as we divide the paragraph into ideas. In this paragraph, there are 3 different ideas. So if you're doing it with me, time to click on play. The first one is this. We live on the island of Hale. It's about 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide at its broadest point. And it's joined to the main line by a causeway called the Strand, a narrow road built across the mouth of the river which separates us from the rest of the country. It's giving us a geographical description. The second, most of the time you wouldn't know we're on an island because the river mouth between us and the mainland is just a vast stretch of tall grass and brown mud. They are giving you the reasons why you don't know you are on an island. The third one is the following. But when there's high tide and the water rises a half a meter or so above the road, and nothing can pass until the tide goes out again a few hours later, then you know it's an island. So now it's the contrary, the reason why you know you are on an island. Now, as there are different ideas, we've got to read the answer options carefully. If we are doing it together, time to click on play. A. It can be dangerous to try to cross from the mainland. It's not said, nothing about it being dangerous. It is much smaller than it looks from the mainland. Okay, here they make reference to its size, but is there any comparison? No, so it's incorrect. It is only completely cut off at certain times. Okay. In the part making reference to the reasons why you think you are on this island, it says, but when there's a high tide and the water rises half a meter or so above the road, nothing can pass until the tide goes out again a few hours later. So C is correct. And finally, D, it can be a difficult place for people to live in. We can suppose it's a difficult place to live in, but is it actually said? No, so it's incorrect. Once it's done, we go to the next question in order to identify where to find the answers again. If you're doing it with me, click on play. We just focus when she's talking about her father. So let's go quick. We, it's not her father, we were on our way back from the mainland. My older brother, Dominic. Let's continue. Had just finished his first year at university in a town 150 kilometers away. Dominic's train, do it quick, was due in at 5 and he had asked for a lift back from the station. Now, Dad. Now, here, we pay attention to it. We underline all the information that is making reference to him. And there it is. Now, Dad normally hates being disturbed when he's writing, which it is about all the time, and he hates having to go anywhere. But despite the typical signs and moans, why can't he get a taxi? What's wrong with the bus? I could tell by the sparkle in his eyes that he was really looking forward to seeing Dominic. So now that we know where the answer is going to be, we go to the multiple choice, A, B, C, and D. If you're doing it with me, click on play. His writings prevent him from doing things he wants to with his family. Where does it say that he wants to do those things with his family? It's not said. Okay, next. His initial reaction to his son's request is different from usual. They make reference to the initial reaction, but do they say they're different from usual? No, incorrect. His true feelings are easily hidden from his daughter. It's not mentioned. His son's arrival is one event he will take time off for. D is correct. He's always writing. We know that, and he hates to go anywhere, but his son has asked him to go to the station. So, even though he reacts initially in this way, complaining, afterwards it says, I could tell by the sparkle in his eyes that he was really looking forward to seeing Dominic. That's making reference that he is going to take time off for this one event. He's going to go to the station. He's going to pick up his son. Let's go to the next one. Caitlin emphasizes her feelings of discomfort because she. Feelings of discomfort. So we've got to search for the place where it's just mentioning that. Click on play. So anyway, Dad and I had driven to the mainland and picked up Dominic from the station. He had been talking non-stop from the moment he had slung his rucksack in the boot and got into the car. Nothing mentioned yet. University this, university that, writers, books, parties, people, money, gigs. And when I say talking, I don't mean talking as in having a conversation. Talking about her feeling of discomfort? No, we continue. I mean talking as in gabbering like a mad thing. I didn't like it. Okay, here. she begins to talk about her feelings. So it's in the last part. I didn't like it. It was embarrassing. It made me feel uncomfortable. That kind of discomfort you feel when someone like you, someone close to you, suddenly starts acting like a complete idiot. And I didn't like the way he was ignoring me either. For all the attention I was getting, I might as well not have been there. I felt a stranger in my own car. Now that we have the sentences related to the questions, do we go to multiple choice? If you're doing it with me, click play. A is embarrassed that she doesn't understand what her brother is talking about. It is true that he talks as if he was some kind of intellectual or something, but nothing is mentioned that it was embarrassing is making reference that she didn't know what he was talking about. So A is incorrect. B feels confused about why she can't relate to her brother anymore. Well, in the text, she does mention that she didn't like the way he was ignoring her and that she felt a stranger in her own car. But where does it say that she feels confused? Nowhere, no feelings, no personal feelings are mentioned related to this. So B is incorrect. C is upset by the unexpected change in her brother's behavior. C is correct. Why? Because it mentions it was embarrassing, he made me feel uncomfortable, and here it is. The kind of discomfort you feel when someone you like, someone close to you, suddenly, unexpectedly starts acting like a complete idiot. So C is correct because in the text it's saying the same but with different vocabulary. That CD feels foolish that her brother's attention is so important to her. Where does it mention that her brother's attention is so important to her? Not mentioned. When in A it says is embarrassed, and here it was embarrassing, this is a word distractor. If the word in the text is similar to the word in the multiple choice, be but very, very, very sure that the others are incorrect. And be careful with the suppositions. Okay, for example, in D, feels foolish that her brother's attention is so important to her. When it's making reference, I didn't like the way he was ignoring me either. You can't suppose she's feeling foolish because her brother is important for her. But is it actually mentioned in the text? No, these are the typical mistakes we first make. We suppose too much and we are carried out by similar vocabulary. In the fourth paragraph, what is Kathleen's purpose in describing the island? If you're doing it with me, time to click. You see, this paragraph is not divided into sections. So we read it, we just get the general idea, and then we go to the multiple choice questions. Let's begin with D. To describe her journey home. For me, a journey home is from one place to another. And in the beginning of the text, it says, as we approach the island. So the journey has already been done. It's the end of the journey that she's talking about. But imagine that you have the doubt. The only thing you do is place a question mark at its side, and that's it. And then you continue with the next one, which would be C, to illustrate what kind of weather was usual. First, it doesn't make reference much to the weather, but especially, is it making reference to what's the usual weather there? No. So it's incorrect. Let's go to B. To explain how the road was made, yes, the road is mentioned as it is described. But is it explaining how it was built? No. So it's incorrect. Let's go to A. To describe her positive feelings towards it. So the stand welcomed us home, and it was clear and dry, beautiful, hazy in the heat. The water was glinting with that wonderful silver light. So all the adjectives that she is expressing are positive. Positive feelings, positive adjectives. A is the correct one. It is said, it is written, you can see it. Next one is in. Because of that, in line 31, that refers to the fact that. So it's already placed, line 31, line 31. We go, we go, we go, and here it is, because of that. So it's in the sentence. So Icelanders don't walk because of that. If you're doing it with me, click play. Let's analyze the text surrounding because of that. Between Hale and Moulton, the nearest town about 30 kilometers away on the mainland, there's nothing but small cottages, farmlands, heathlands, and a couple of hills. So Icelanders don't walk because of that. If they're going to Moulton, they tend to take the bus. So now that we've got the idea, we go to the multiple choice. Hey, locals think it is odd to walk anywhere. Now, this odd and odd here, my first thought was how odd it was to see someone walking on the stand. There are two things to mention here. They're using the same word odd in the multiple choice and in the text. So it's a distraction. Second, it's her thought. It's not the locals' thought. And it mentions that it was odd to see someone walking on the stand, and here it makes reference to walk anywhere, which is a very different meaning. But the most important reason is that because of that, and her thought is too far away and is not in the surrounding area of the text that can be answered with that. It is easier for people to take the bus than walk. Well, it is mentioned, but if you realize because of that, whatever that's making reference to will be previously and not after. So if the bus was mentioned before, then it could have been possible, but as it's mentioned after, that makes it incorrect. That is not making reference to the bus. People have everything they need on the island. Nothing is mentioned, and there is nowhere in particular to walk to from the island. And this is the correct one, as between these places there's nothing but small cottages, farmlands, heathlands, and a couple of hills. So, because of this reason, they do not walk there. Last one. What do we learn about Kathleen's reaction to the boy? Click play. As we drew closer, he became clearer. He was actually a young man rather than a boy. Although he was on the small side, he wasn't as slight as I had first thought. This is her reaction, and the rest is just description of him. That's it. So now that we've got the piece underlined, we go to the multiple choice. A. She felt his air of confidence contrasted with his physical appearance. Okay, she does mention his air of confidence when she's making reference to there was a sense of strength about him. But is she contrasting it with his physical appearance? No. She was able to come up with a reason for him being there. Nothing mentioned. C. She realized her first impression of him was inaccurate. It is. He wasn't as light as I had thought, and also mentioned he was actually a young man rather than a boy. So her first impression of him was incorrect. She thought she had seen him somewhere before. Not mentioned. So remember, these are the steps that we have to follow when doing this exercise. We get the general information from the introduction and the title. We do not read the text, but we go directly to the questions where we underline the keywords, where it's placed, and what information we have to look for. But we do not read A, B, C, or D. Once this is done, we go directly to the questions in order to search for the information that we have to underline. Once we have found this information is when we pay attention to the multiple choice A, B, C, and D. In this way, we do not make mistakes with the distractors and we do not suppose. If it's a full paragraph that we have to pay attention to with a general idea, if it has different ideas, what we do is separate them, and after is when we go to the multiple choice. It will be much more easier to find the information and the correct information. If it's a paragraph and it doesn't have different ideas, what we do is that we read it, get more or less the general idea that they are giving us, and then we go to the multiple choice. And finally, remember, this is a typical exercise of part 5, multiple choice. They give you a few words because of that. In this case, it's a pronoun, and you've got to try to discover what that pronoun is making reference to. Now, remember that it will always make reference to what is said before, not after, and not if it's very far away. Hope I've helped you to understand the reasoning behind these exercises. And as I always say, is theory important? Of course it is, but practice is essential in order to make all the mistakes practicing so we do not make them during the exam. Bye-bye.